My Husband's Ex. Episode 7. It's been 2 years since Sophia lost the last pregnancy. Her husband convinced her to get less anxious about baby making, to enable them enjoy their marriage. He assured her that there was more to marriage and companionship than childbearing. He managed to convince her to take a break, and also got her to agree to the doctor's advice, when the time came. About this time, Emily was already pregnant with a second child. "Hello, honey. I'm so sick right now. Would you please come home at once? I know the business you embarked on is very important. But after being with your partners for these 2 weeks, I'm sure you can find a way to come home to me and our little baby," Emily cried into her phone receiver. She was pregnant for her second child, and she had been trying so hard to resist the urge to hurt Brad after she got to know that he was still neck-deep in cheating. Brad was standing close to a wall fan, ensuring that the air gushing out of the fan was getting right into the mouthpiece of his phone to create the rustling sound he wanted. "Hello, baby. I can't hear you. Hold on, I'll call you right back," Brad said, hanging up abruptly and rushing back to continue with what he was doing before her persistent calls made him rush off to see what the hullabaloo was all about. He was very angry that Emily had made him leave what he was doing halfway just to take her calls, only to find out that she was just seeking attention. Audrey was beckoning on him impatiently to go on with what they were doing, making Brad smile happily as he jumped right back to their show of shame. Brad couldn't have ever believed that Audrey, his wife's friend, would be one who'd let him hug her fully, let alone ask that they get down as a way of compensating her for not telling Emily that she caught him cheating on her with a woman inside his parked car, in the parking lot of a famous club in town. He could recall how their illicit affair started, and though he didn't really plan for things to happen the way they did, Audrey caught him pants down with Clara, Jovani's ex. Some days before Jovani tied the knots with Sophia, Clara had got a report from the person she hired to gather information about Sophia, and the address he gave her led her to Brad. The two desperate beings met, and had an understanding that they both wanted Jovani and Sophia apart, making them form an alliance. For Brad, he knew Sophia may not truly return to him, but he didn't want Jovani being the one who gets to have Sophia for keeps, after ruining all his plans with his sudden appearance and interference with his love affair with Sophia. So he was ready to join forces with Clara, who wanted to get Jovani back by all means. According to what she told Brad, it would be a shame to her if words got out that she was ditched on the very day she was to be traditionally married, only for the guy to get married to someone from a lower social class. The two allies worked assiduously, ensuring that they got the things needed in place to put a stop to the wedding. And in celebration of their supposed success, they had agreed to go out on a celebration date. They had so much to drink, and Clara was literally unable to walk herself to her car, let alone drive home by herself. Brad had volunteered to take her home and walked her to his car, with the intention of getting her home as promised. But the moment they got to the car, she got all clingy, holding onto him as if she was afraid to let him go. He opened the back seat and tried to get her settled inside, but she kept pulling him, making Brad see just how beautiful she was and how freely he could get her. Common sense told Brad to stick to what he had come for, but a part of him wanted to get the cheese that was being pushed into his mouth. He knew the girl was drunk and out of her mind, but he also knew she belonged to a man who had taken his Sophia away. So he obliged her, getting into the back seat with her, and letting her kiss him as much as she wanted. Clara had been without a man for so long, so with Brad standing so close, with her feeling his breath as he walked her to the car, her adrenaline had been in excess supply, making her desire him so much. Without wasting time, Brad got down with her, not even having the time to reach for protection. Brad had just reached the peak of his journey when he noticed a flicker of lights, and he turned around to find Audrey snapping away. He was happy that Clara hadn't noticed that they had been discovered, so he left her lying partially unconscious and totally oblivious of the happenings around her. "Please calm down, Audrey. I can explain. It's not really what you think it is," he told Audrey when he caught up with her as she tried to run away after she noticed Brad getting off the car. "Brad, you will do the explanations to your wife who never agreed that you're a playboy. I have always known that the day when I show her who you are was coming," she had told him. Brad spent time talking to her, trying to see how to get her name a price, and was totally flabbergasted to know that she just wanted to have him or she'd spill everything to his wife. He was her price. And that was how Brad, who never looked the other way when he saw a beautiful woman, began his amorous affair with Audrey, his wife's friend. She made him stay away from home most nights, and quite recently, she started making demands, asking for more time and attention. Brad had a big fight with Clara, who accused him of spiking her drinks to have his way with her, and their troubles ended up spoiling their plans to disrupt Sophia's wedding party. He cared less that Clara was mad at him. He had already had a taste of her after all. Plus, the beautiful Audrey wanted him practically all day long, making him forget that he wanted Sophia back. "I love you, Brad," Audrey told him, forcing his mind from the faraway places it had been. "And I love you more, Audrey. I wish I met you before I met my wife," he told her, kissing her cheeks, his mind on what to tell his wife as soon as he got home. They were still nestled closely when Audrey's phone began to ring. It was Emily, calling to know if Audrey found out why her husband had been acting strangely yet. "Emily, I told you before. I made my researches and I found out your husband has been messing around again. The only thing left for me to do now is to find out the identity of this new girl and make you see what I've been trying to tell you," Audrey told her friend in hushed tones, trying to keep Brad from hearing what she was saying as she walked to the bathroom. "Oh God. So it's true? So that guy still has the nerves to do what he's doing? Well, I'm hoping I don't hurt him one of these days. There's a limit to what I can really take. I never planned to have all these complications his infidelity is causing in my life right now. All I planned was to get married and live happily with the man I love, raising our own kids," Emily complained. "It's okay, Emily. I think it's really not the best to think of hurting him and stand a chance of ruining your own life if things go wrong. Why don't you leave him? You know you will have an amazing life the moment you take the bold step and walk out. Why are you hesitating?" Audrey asked her friend. She was yet to answer her when Audrey heard Brad's footsteps approaching the bathroom where she was taking the call. "You know what, Emily? I'll see you tomorrow. My boyfriend is here, and I need to let him have what he wants before he starts throwing tantrums," Audrey said and hung up. Brad willed to go home to his wife, to see how she was doing, but Audrey was holding him captive with the blackmailing chip she had. She would start crying whenever he made serious attempt to go home, and even threatened to tell his wife everything she knew. He remained in the apartment he had bought for Audrey, fulfilling her crazy desires all day long and pleasing her all night long, for another 1 week, before she allowed him visit Emily. Yes, it was gradually turning to visits because he could only stay a few hours in his house before he had to rush over to Audrey. "Honey, we need to talk. I need us to talk about something very important to me. Can you sit for a few minutes?" Emily asked her husband, getting tired of playing games. Audrey, her friend, had got her into playing games with her marriage since the very day she got her proof that Brad was cheating on her, something she wished she could turn back the hands of time, and refused to do. She recalled with pains how Audrey had convinced her to get a boyfriend, someone who would attend to her emotional needs and make up for the times she missed her husband's attention that she was always having to do without since the very first day she got married. Emily was a few weeks pregnant, and she had just been married for just a month, but her husband was hardly ever around. He was either traveling for a business trip for days, or he gets an urgent call that'll take him away from home for so long. On one of the occasions she fell ill at night, and Brad was nowhere to be found, and she had to call Audrey to come help her. And it happened that Audrey's help was in form of a bottle of hot drink, something she had never taken before. Emily had totally rejected the idea initially, but being so cold and alone, she didn't know how she was going to sleep if she made Audrey mad enough to make her walk out on her. Audrey made her believe that if she drank the alcohol, she'd wake up forgetting her pains and sorrows, but she had woken up instead with pains and bleedings the next morning. "Oh my God. See what I have done to myself. Brad and Aunt have been so excited about this pregnancy. They have been so expectant, counting down to the day that baby lands. What am I going to do now?" she wailed. "Calm down, Emily. What we have to think about now is how to make sure your husband or his aunt doesn't find out about this miscarriage at all. You can't let him know about it, not when he is deeply immersed in a relationship with a girl he seems to love too much. If he finds out that you have lost the pregnancy, the only thing you have, that makes him keep running back to you, then you're in for a big deal," Audrey said, getting Emily to nod in agreement. In the long run, the two friends agreed to let Emily get involved with a guy that had been pestering her for so long. Turns out the dude was head over heels in love with Emily and had been mad with Brad for coming up from nowhere all of a sudden and taking her right away, at the point she was beginning to consider giving him a chance. Their relationship started almost the same day she contacted him, laughing and playing all day long. They had hours of passionate and heated encounter that night, because just like Emily had suspected, her husband didn't come home. Audrey had tactically set Emily running after the man who had been crushing on her since forever, giving her time enough to be with Brad. And so, for the period of time that Brad had been married to Emily. He knew her as a homely and never nagging wife, because she never troubled him, but in fact, she had made him father a child that wasn't biologically his, and was pregnant for another, with none of them having any idea of what was going on with them. Sylvester, her boyfriend, had been making plans of getting Emily become his wife when he had gathered enough money to make her run away with him, and he just didn't want to have to run off with children that weren't his. So, he made some researches and came up with a plan. He made Emily add a particular substance to Brad's food over a period of time, assuring Emily that the stuff was just to make him disoriented when he was around the house, so he doesn't pick up things that could make him know what was going on between them. But in the real sense of things, he was making sure Brad didn't have the ability to ever get a woman pregnant, just to ensure that no matter how many times he slept with Emily, she wouldn't conceive his seed. And even though he had to make so much sacrifice to achieve this, even though he had to bear having the thoughts of Brad being with a woman pregnant for him, he knew he needed to remain as patient as he could be, until he has gathered the much he needed to gather. That morning, Emily woke up feeling very exhausted. She didn't like how complicated her life had become, and instead of hurting Brad, she had taken the advice of walking out instead. Brad turned around and seeing how serious Emily looked that morning, knew Audrey had to wait. Emily had always been easygoing, giving me the chance to mess around as much as I wanted, without her having faintest idea of what I'm doing, Brad thought. Any other day, and he could have just shut her up and asked her to wait for another time for the conversation, but with expression on her face, he knew he had to listen to her. "Okay, sweetheart, what's the big deal?" Brad asked, sitting opposite her, with his daughter sitting on his thighs. "Brad, I want a divorce," she spat out so straightforward that Brad swallowed spittle wrongly and choked right on it. "Say that again. You want what? Emily, what is wrong with you? How can you just wake up on a beautiful morning like this and plan to ruin our beautiful family? You know you and our daughter are all I've got. Why are you acting this way? Why do you want to let the devil come between us?" Brad asked his wife. Emily looked at Brad and wondered how he was able to always maintain a plausible composure after being neck-deep in adultery from the very first day they got married. If Audrey hadn't given her evidences, if she hadn't given her both video and pictorial proofs, she would have assumed her husband was as chaste as he wanted to make her believe. "Brad, for how long are you going to keep cheating and covering up? For how long are you going to keep me home alone while you roam the nooks and crannies of this city with different girls?" Emily asked in tears. "When you asked me to marry you, when you promised me all the love, I wasn't hoping for so much. I wasn't hoping to have it all. Just wanted to have a husband that I love, and one that would love me and his children. I didn't anticipate the complications that you have pushed my once peaceful life into. I have been through so much already, and I'm truly tired of it all. So I want the easy way out. Please divorce me," Emily requested. She wondered how for so long she had loved him, until he married her. She couldn't believe how quickly her love for him had actually faded away, making her wish she hadn't walked down the aisle with him. They argued to and fro, with Brad making crazy confessions and asking for her forgiveness, begging her to consider the interest of their little daughter, and the unborn one. In the end, Emily agreed it wouldn't be right to let the little ones be the ones who bear the brunt of the breakdown in their marriage, and agreed to try to work things out. That day, Brad switched off his phone, trying to shut Audrey out, and decided to stick to his wife, ready to tell Audrey off the next time they met. And Emily also made up her mind to make Sylvester see why they needed to stop what they were doing. She planned to concentrate on her marriage and see how she raises her children in a peaceful marriage with their father. The couple had a great day, kissing, cuddling and catching up on old times the whole of that day, making promises and most of all, reaffirming their vows to be by each other forever. And everything would have moved on so perfectly if Audrey hadn't visited with Sylvester later that night. Audrey had a sinister smile on her face, and Sylvester chuckled like a maniac as they watched the couple panic. "Hey Emily, I've been trying to call you all day. What happened to your phone?" Audrey asked Emily, smiling brightly, as she sat beside her. "I was speaking with my husband Audrey. I decided to let him know that I wanted a divorce, just like you advised. But he kinda made me see why divorce wouldn't be in our best interest. He even agreed to make amends. You won't believe it, Audrey. The cursed girl that has been keeping my husband away from the house has been calling him all day, and he told her right in my presence to stay away from him and his family. Audrey, my husband had to switch off his phone since then, because he didn't want her to reach him again," Emily told her friend happily. "Oh, That's one wonderful," Audrey stuttered, looking up at Brad, who had fidgeting badly since she got into the house. "But what are you going to do now? Are you also going to abandon the one who has been making you happy all these while that your husband remained absent? Will you break up with the one who has filled in for your husband too?" she asked, intentionally rambling on, even when Emily was trying to signal her to be quiet. "What do you mean the one that filled in for me?" Brad asked, his heart beginning to beat rather too fast. He looked at his wife, and noticed she was fidgeting as she looked at the man that had come in with Audrey. At first, he had surmised that Audrey brought a man, to make him jealous, but with the way the man was looking at his wife, and she, feeling so uncomfortable with his presence, Brad began to worry. "I think you should ask your wife. She is in a better position to answer that question," Audrey said, looking away from Emily. Audrey, I think it's time you left my house. My wife is clearly uncomfortable with your visit, and like she has said, we have decided to build our home and mend the holes your input has created. You have been advising my wife behind my back to divorce me, while you worked your way to get your plans perfected. But guess what, Audrey? We're wiser now. My wife has agreed to fight for our marriage, and I have decided to be a better husband to her," Brad spat. "Oh really? Will Emily not be a fool to assume that a man who could start dating her best friend few weeks after their wedding, and remained literally a visitor to his home because of nights of endless pleasures, will suddenly become a good husband?" Audrey said, determined to ensure that the couple had the troubles she wanted them to have. She had nothing to lose after all. If Brad was truly going to leave her after wasting her time, she wasn't going to allow him return to his family as if all was well. "Audrey. Jesus. Audrey, you've been the rat biting and blowing me? Audrey, you've been dating my husband and still managed to make me chase shadows?" Emily asked in tears. Audrey rolled her eyes nonchalantly. What use was Emily to her, if she wasn't going to have access to Brad after all? "I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's all my fault. I know I let you down, but I'm going to spend the rest of my days making it up to you," Brad said, looking truly sorry. "It's okay, honey. I've always known you were doing something bad, and I have forgiven you for it. I just didn't know that the one I allowed into my home, with open hands, was actually the one breaking my home," Emily said. "Okay, Audrey, it's time to go. You can go ahead and leave now with your boyfriend. I have seen him, and I really do not care if he starts eating you as soon as you get out of this door, because like I told you over the phone, I'm done with you, or any other person for that matter. It's time to focus on my wife and my family," he said, pulling Audrey up from the seat. "Let me go at once, you fool. Who told you Sylvester is my boyfriend? I know you don't care who your woman gets in bed with, but what if the gentleman won't let your wife throw him aside as easily as you threw me away, after being together for so long?" Audrey quipped, making Brad freeze in his path. "Say that again." Brad said, his eyes narrowing, and his heart thudding heavily in fright, as the reality of what he had suspected when the man kept looking at his wife began to unfold. "Honey, I planned to tell you. I would have told you, but I was waiting to put things right with Sylvester first. I'm sorry that you're going to hear it this way, but Audrey made me do it. She made me start a relationship with Sylvester who had been chasing me, long before we got married, when I began to miss you so badly. I know it's not an excuse, but you were always away, and Audrey made me believe my marriage would be more peaceful if I had someone to take care of my needs and keep me from troubling or nagging you," Emily said, crying some more. "I can't believe this. So Audrey, you kept my wife preoccupied with another man, to give you the chance to have me to yourself. How ingenious." Brad spoke through clenched teeth. "Please, honey, forgive me for this mistake, and we'll build our home in peace, take care of our daughter and wait happily for the one unborn. I promise never to have anything to do with Sylvester or any other man again, no matter what," she pledged. "Oh really? So just like Audrey had said, you're planning to drop me like a bag of rotten potatoes? Well, there won't be any problems because I came prepared to face the disappointment. I mean, I can't force you to be with me, but I won't let you keep my child with another man any longer." Sylvester spoke for the first time, making Brad nearly have a heart attack. "In your dreams. So because I fell for the evil plot my friend orchestrated and allowed you have access to my body, you have the guts to claim a fruit of my marriage as yours?" Emily asked, feeling like slapping the hell out of Sylvester. Emily. Why are you so naive? Would I call the child mine if I didn't know that she is mine? Or aside your husband who had been on a steady dose of a medication that makes it impossible for him to impregnate any woman, have you been sleeping with anyone else?" Sylvester asked, looking disgustedly at Brad. What is this clown talking about? What medication is he blabbing about? Brad asked, looking at his groin involuntarily. Do not listen to the crazy rants of a man who's bitter and clearly running stark raving mad because the trouble he set out with his accomplice to put in my household is failing, Emily said, confident that Sylvester was just bluffing. It's okay, Emily. Go on and call me crazy and whatever else suits your fantasy. But be rest assured that I would do whatever I can to keep my daughter and the unborn child away from this desolate place. You can home. I'm definitely going to get the law agencies have us get a DNA test for my daughter, Sylvester said before he bounced out of the house, leaving Brad speechless with his level of conviction that the child was his. He blanked out for quite a while, only regaining his senses when he heard his wife and Audrey fighting. As much as he remained sad that his wife actually had something to do with another man, giving room for some random man to fight over the paternity of his child, he wasn't ready to stand by and watch Audrey fight his wife in his house. Take your miserable and despicable self out of my house now, Brad screamed, throwing Audrey out of his house with a rough pull and push. That night, neither Emily nor Brad could sleep properly. Emily spent time thinking about how she'd live on if the child turned out to be Sylvester's. Her marriage would be gone for sure, but what was she going to do with her life? She would certainly not be going back to Sylvester, after all that had transpired that night. Brad was worried about the shame and pains of having to hand over a child he had called his for so long to another, but worried more about what the dude meant by him taking a dose of medications that would make it impossible for him to impregnate anyone. Dear Lord, please help me wake up and find this a big nightmare, he prayed as he walked into the hospital, some days later with Sylvester and Emily, who was carrying their daughter. He walked into a private ward by accident, only to find the very people he wished he didn't have to see. Sophia was lying on the bed, and Jovani was reading her a story, as she seemed to be falling asleep. Her already very big baby bump was too obvious to miss, and that got Brad standing rooted to the ground, unable to move or say a thing, wondering how on earth Sophia got pregnant and looked so happy with her life. Honey, are you okay? Emily asked Brad, confused about what kept her husband looking like he had seen a ghost. She knew they had entered a wrong room, but that wasn't enough to make someone look the way he was looking. Her voice brought Brad back from the faraway places it had journeyed, startling him greatly with the way she was looking at him. I'm fine, yeah, I'm good. He stuttered, looked at Jovani again, and then at Sophia before he turned around and ran out of the hospital ward. He was still thinking of what he had seen, wondering if his friend Kelly had played on his intelligence as he walked with his wife down the hospital lobby. How can she be pregnant? He soliloquized, not remembering that he was in company of others, waiting for the DNA results. How can I be pregnant? Emily asked, assuming that he was talking about her pregnancy, but Brad just looked at her and looked away. Emily was restless, worried sick about what could happen if the result turned out the way Sylvester had insinuated. On his part, Sylvester was sitting with legs crossed, feeling like a conqueror. He knew the child was his, and in a matter of time, Emily too. He smiled triumphantly as he thought of how he had successfully got Brad sterile, the whole time he stayed with Emily, ensuring that any of his progenies never found its way to Emily's eggs. Now, Emily will have no option but to come to me, knowing fully well that she needs a father for her children. This is most certainly a win-win for me. I'll have my children back, and then, the woman of my dreams will have no option but to come right back into my arms. I know she'll be mad at me for a while, but I know just how to make her happy again, Sylvester thought happily. The doctor walked out some minutes later to ask them to follow him to his office. I asked you all to wait for me because I need to talk to you as a professional, just before the DNA result arrives. Also, based on the nature of this case, the samples collected had to be screened for other things, and that brings us to the issue on ground. Mr. Brad, as part of my duties, I'm saddled with the responsibility of giving you a post-screening counseling before you hear the results of some of the tests that are available now. You got the pre-test counseling earlier, and I believe you understand why we have to have this conversation, the doctor began. Brad was flipping the pen in his hand, trying to get over his nervousness. He knew he had nothing to worry about, since the doctor was talking about the HIV result. His mind was rather on things to come. The doctor had said the DNA test would be ready in 2 days' time, and he would have loved to just leave immediately, but he chose to remain there to fulfill all righteousness. So while the doctor was talking, he was just nodding to make it look like he was listening, when his mind was in fact still wondering how Sophia managed to get pregnant. So Mr. Brad, I like you to know that testing positive to HIV isn't the end of the world for someone living in the 21st century. If you start taking your antiretroviral medicines now, you have the hopes of having your viral load reduced to a harmless degree, the doctor said. What do you mean if I start taking medication? You're sounding like I tested positive to the virus, Brad said, laughing uneasily. Sylvester and Emily were also beginning to squirm in their seats, finding it hard to believe that the doctor had just inferred that Brad tested positive to the virus. Mr. Brad, like I said, it's not a big deal. You tested positive, as well as Mr. Sylvester here, but the little child tested negative, so we had to repeat the tests. Unfortunately, Mr. Brad, the results are same. The little child is free of the virus, but you two contending fathers are both positive, Brad remembered hearing the doctor say before he passed out. Sylvester went berserk, nearly pulling down the hospital as he thought of how hopeless his life had suddenly become. The doctor tried to calm him down considerably before he politely asked them to return to the hospital for their DNA results and make preparations to get started with their antiretroviral medicines. Brad had regained consciousness a few minutes later and found himself lying on a hospital bed. He jumped down quickly and rushed out of the ward, only to find his wife having a heated argument with Sylvester. He docked to listen to them. I really don't know what to tell you right now. So after everything, after all the decision to remain a virgin before marriage, you still ended up getting infected with the dreaded virus and managed to pass it to me. Sylvester screamed. And who says you're not the one who infected me and made me infect Brad? Emily fired angrily. Emily, all my life, all the women I have ever been with, I had gone to with protection. I have never had sex without protection, except with you. And if I didn't have the ambition of having my children when I eventually get you out of that house, I wouldn't have slept with you. Without protection, Sylvester said in frustration. You know, Sylvester, I feel so afraid to take the HIV test now, knowing that since you two are positive that I'll surely be positive too, and it makes me feel so bad. But I feel like throwing up each time I listen to you sound so sure that my child will have a biological connection with you. Emily spat. Well, get ready to vomit as much as you can because those drugs I gave you, yes, the ones I made you add to his food regularly, were meant to keep him sterile. To ensure that when you finally come back to me, the children you have will be mine, Sylvester bragged. Damn you, Sylvester, you're as evil as Audrey. Oh Jesus, how did I allow myself get into all these? I can't believe I fell right into your devilish hands. But you know what? I do not need to wait for the results. I don't even care what it'll say because as long as I live, I'll make sure no child of mine will be called yours. You will surely reap the reward for this cruelty, you and Audrey. And I swear by God, if I find you anywhere around me after today, I'll get as dirty as you are, or even worse, because I'll kill you straight away, Emily cried, before she turned around and ran away. Brad blanked out after he heard Sylvester talk about making Emily feed him with some stuffs. He was standing like a dead tree, looking at his groin that he had been clutching for so long, without really seeing anything. When he became conscious of his surroundings again, the two people that had been talking had left. Calm down, Brad. He may just be bluffing. Yeah, that has to be it. He is trying to make Emily believe that the child is his, he told himself, as he walked with shaky legs to his car, thinking of how he could drive in his state. Then his phone rang. It was Kelly, his friend, calling to know if he was still going to attend a wedding they had planned to attend. Brad mumbled a few things and hung up, and Kelly got on a hired ride, racing to the hospital Brad had told him he was. Kelly, tell me you haven't been messing with my head. Tell me you haven't been making a fool of me with the things that has been going on in my life, Brad asked Kelly the moment he sat down in his car. Kelly was pulling out of the parking lot and initially planned to head to the venue of the party he wanted Brad to attend with him, but the look on Brad's face told him everything wasn't okay with him. Do you mind telling me what the problem is, Brad? He asked, trying to tone down the mood with which his friend had spoken. Don't keep playing around. Tell me all about Sophia and why you did what you did. Brad said. Speak English? Can you please stop speaking in parables already? Kelly said, beginning to lose his cool. God damn it, Kelly. You know like hell what I am talking about. You told me Sophia won't be able to give birth to her own children. I left Sophia because of her supposed inability to give birth to her own children, and married Emily. But you know what, Kelly? You came to get me from a hospital where I was standing side by side with a man who suddenly appeared from nowhere and says my little daughter and the unborn one are his. And you know what else, Kelly? I just tested positive to a HIV screening. Yes, Kelly, have also been on drugs to keep me sterile and unable to impregnate Emily, for only God knows how long without knowing it. Brad screamed in frustration, making Kelly step on the brake pedal on impulse, swerving off the road, and pulling to a stop by the roadside. Oh no, no, no. I don't want to believe that your wife chose to make you take those drugs when it is common knowledge that long-term use of those drugs can result to total sterility. Kelly quipped. Oh well, thanks for the news. Thanks for letting me know that I could truly be sterile now that I have found out that the little girl is most probably not mine. Brad said through clenched teeth. I'm sorry, Brad, but if she has been feeding you with those stuffs, and in an amount we are yet to ascertain, you will need to run some tests and be sure that you're still okay and able to make babies, Kelly said. Isn't today a day for tests and receiving bad news? Go ahead, take samples, conduct your tests and give me the bad news as always, Brad told his friend. Kelly tried to console his friend for a while, then drove straight to the hospital, where he got the laboratory technician take Brad's samples and began the tests. Brad was a collection of emotional disarray. He was worried about so many things, and regretful of a whole lot of others. Why did I let the love of my life go, only to end up this way? How am I going to live on, knowing that the woman I met, a virgin and trusted with my life, had been cajoled not only into extramarital affairs, but had been fooled into feeding me with harmful substances? How can I live with the knowledge that the woman that loved me so right, slipped out of my hands because I thought she was incapable of getting pregnant, only for me to find her living happily with the man that snatched her out of my hands, and heavily pregnant too? Brad thought as he sat in Kelly's office, waiting for the test results. He was becoming too nervous to sit still, so he got up and decided to take a walk. The irony of life. See how these people sitting and waiting to see the doctor, with most of them thinking they are so sick, when they are actually healthier than some of us that appear so healthy, he thought as he looked at a group of people sitting in a particular hall. He had almost walked past when his eyes caught sight of someone that looked so familiar. Oh yes, it was Clara. What is Clara doing in the hospital when she looks so healthy? Wait, is this not the special department for people with? He thought, his heart blanking out as a realization hit him. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why did I wake up today? Who did I offend in the spirit world? Brad lamented, nearly losing consciousness as the tiny bits of thoughts got fused together to make him understand how he got infected with the HIV virus. He rushed back to his friend's office to tell him of the discovery he had made, after seeing Clara, whom he had had a casual sex with, in revenge for her ex taking away his girlfriend, queuing up to get antiretroviral medicines. Why didn't I let that good-for-nothing girl go that day? Did I have to sleep with her? What kind of mess did I get myself into? He was thinking when his phone began to buzz. He flipped it to answer the call without looking at who the caller was, only to hear Audrey taunting him with the news she got about him not standing a chance at having the paternity test in his favor. You need to slow down, Audrey. I've been hit bad, but I think you don't know yet that you got infected by the dreaded HIV virus the very first time I slammed you in the open field. Yes, Audrey. Don't be quick to rejoice at the evil you have brought upon my household, because even you have got your own share of the bad fate. Go check yourself, Audrey. Get some antiretroviral drugs and maybe you may be able to live some more. The girl you met me sleeping with in the car that got you forcing yourself on me has been living with HIV, but you won't believe how healthily good looking I saw her some minutes ago. You're calm now? Oh no, Audrey. Don't be so quiet, because I haven't told you how I have been feeding you with some very strong contraceptives to ensure that those acrobatic and immoral shows of shame you made us have every now and then didn't end in pregnancy and bring Emily troubles. If I had known that the man you arranged for my wife was already ensuring that I couldn't impregnate anyone, then maybe I wouldn't have taken the risks of feeding you with drugs I was told could make you unable to conceive even after you stopped taking them, Brad told her, and hung up before she could say anything else. Lord, this can't be true. No, it mustn't be true. I am my mother's only child. She had been troubling me about getting her a grandchild. How can I tell my mother that after all our plots to get pregnant and make Brad focus entirely on me, I may not be able to get pregnant again after all? Audrey soliloquized, crying hysterically. She cried for so long that she didn't know how she was able to type the message she sent to Emily to inform her about how they all got infected with the virus, blaming Emily for making her know someone as despicable as Brad. She sent a message to her mother, telling her about how everything had crumbled right in her eyes, and how she could no longer live in the shameful world she had created for herself. Goodbye, wicked world, she cried as she drank an overdose of a medicine she shouldn't toy with, then lay on the bed to await the pull of death. Some minutes later, the pull did come, only with a level of excruciating pains that made her wish she hadn't done what she did. As she gasped for air and writhed in pains, she began to cry, wishing she had believed it when people constantly said that suicide was the worst of all sins, because it wasn't just a sin against God, but also against one's self. She was hurting terribly, feeling so much pains that she wished she could turn back the hands of time. But it was too late. She was closer to the gate of hell than she had reckoned, and she was pulled right in, making her body suddenly go limp on the bed. Meanwhile, Brad was looking at Kelly with murderous intent as he sat listening to him explain to him that he was now totally sterile, all thanks to all the drugs he had been fed over time. "That is it, Kelly. I hope you're happy now. I hope you can now rejoice for what you have done," he told Kelly harshly. "Excuse me," Kelly said, not quite getting his point. "Oh, Kelly, quit being stupid. You made me believe Sophia wouldn't be able to give me babies, and I ended up with a woman who brought me so many complications that I'm now worse than a dead man. You made me leave Sophia, Kelly. You made me lose the woman for me, you messenger of doom," Brad cursed. "Oh, shut up, Brad. I've been taking all the rubbish you've been spewing for so long because I was hoping you'd someday become a responsible young man. But it's clear you aren't just irresponsible with women, you won't even take responsibility for your crazy actions too. I told you about the complications that arose from the abortion you paid for, and you agreed to throw a girl you said you loved greatly aside. But my cousin, who was neither responsible for the pregnancy, nor for the abortion, damned the consequences and the threats from his father, and married her. That doesn't look like I made you let her go, because I said more to Jovani than I ever told you. I even made my uncle threaten to disown him. So don't you keep speaking from the two ends of your mouth, because you're solely responsible for your actions and inactions that got you where you are today. And if you'd like to hear how Sophia managed to get pregnant and is just a few weeks from full term, I'll tell you. Jovani told me how he had to convince his wife, how he had to persuade her, until she agreed to do the right thing, for someone who has issues with her cervix. Sophia's cervix was affected by the abortion, and I told you what I told you because I knew her chances of retaining a fetus till full term was going to be impossible except she could go through this special process, Kelly explained. And I told you to decide for me that I can't face the process. Brad asked him angrily. Come on, Brad. We both know that your Casanova lifestyle will never allow you dedicate the time to stay beside a woman and support her through going on a long-term bed rest to enable her uterus retain the fetus till full term. Jovani got the doctor give her a cervical cerclage. That is, get her face the procedure that keeps the cervix closed during pregnancy to prevent premature birth due to incompetent or weakened cervix. And got his wife to agree to stay in the hospital just as the doctor had instructed. But you know what? He is literally on the bed rest too, because he has never made Sophia have a moment of boredom or worry with his ever-compassionate love. And I'm compelled to believe that it was the hand of God that made you desert her, so she could find someone deserving, Kelly said, making Brad lose his mind. Of course, Kelly, I do not deserve to be with her like you have said, and so do you not deserve to live on, because the babies you have killed with this hopeless specialization in abortion are all crying to have you with them, Brad said, lurching at Kelly with the surgical scissors on the table, and dealing a fatal blow on his chest. Do you think Kelly will survive this vicious attack? Will Brad get away with what he had just done? What if Sylvester isn't the father of Emily's child? Find out what happens next in the next episode. If you're new here, please click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get notified when I post the next episode. Don't forget to leave a comment to tell us what you think about Brad, Emily, Audrey, and Sylvester.